Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Twitch Tuesdays at the TRU Library this Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. As usual, I'm Ben Mitchell, he/them, your Outreach and Student Success Librarian. And today we are going to be playing Valiant Hearts, The Great War, while talking about a little bit about, war and history and, how we think about these things in honor of Remembrance Day, which is coming up on November 11th. I'm gonna wait a little bit to see if anyone comes a little bit late to the chat. So one of the things, I don't know if you've considered this, but isn't it quite striking that so many of our stories are war-themed? And this isn't just video games, this is, books, movies, comics. They're war-themed, but they're not necessarily about war as subject matter. They don't get into, what war is, how it comes about, what it does to people, in a more kind of, nuanced or thoughtful way. I think that's, quite telling, right? Considering, what the role that war still plays in our lives, right? And I know that some games have historically done a little bit more like this. If you saw my talk at with the Trusu Gaming Club's podcast, Hyperfixation, talked a little bit about Metal Gear Solid 2 and some of its commentaries on war and what war is, increasingly in kind of a virtual reality world. As I understand it, I never played them, but also the earliest Call of Duties were a bit more intentional about reflecting on the realities of war. And I thought that when I found Valiant Hearts, I thought this game was particularly interesting because there's not many games about the First World War that I'm familiar with. And I don't know about you. I'm just going to turn the sound down a little bit more. I don't know about you, but I find personally the First World War to be more interesting than the Second, if only because, I feel like the Second World War was in some ways a continuation of the First World War. And the First World War is more intriguing to me just because there's less obvious good guys and bad guys. It's just a messy situation. And so much of it is, characterized what modern, 20th century warfare was going to look like. And this game is particularly interesting. I'm going to start a new game and get us into it here shortly, because it's not really like you punch people on occasion, but it's not really kind of like a killing game. It's more like a puzzle platformer. And I want to talk a little bit about some research I did when I was teaching a course on Einstein about the First World War, Einstein's relationship to it. If people are interested, I could also talk a little bit about my own family history. My father was a soldier. Both my grandparents were soldiers. All of my ex's family were in the military. It's a thing that happens when you're from an economically disadvantaged part of the world that mostly has military bases in it, and it's a primary employer. But it's a certain way of life. People might not expect that from me, given what I've got going on here. But I do, I've not been a soldier. I never want to be a soldier. But I grew up around it. I smell boot polish, and I feel weirdly nostalgic about my childhood from my father polishing his boots and having me practice my salutes and making sure that the hand was at the right position. And I'm really bad at it now, but there was a time there when he was very proud of how I saluted in the house. Alrighty then. So let's get into the game first, give you a bit of a sense of the gameplay, what it's about, what has going on, because this game is interesting, right? Because it's actually, it's supposed to be partially educational, which we'll see here. All right, so without further ado, let's get in. Boof. Freely inspired by the
August 1st, 1914. After the assassination of Prince Franz Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the German Empire declares war on Russia. Because of established alliances, France is preparing for conflict. A few hours after the announcement of the general mobilization, German civilians living in France are asked to leave the country. Karl is one of them. A few days after Karl was deported, the war was hungry for more and took away Emil as well. A heavy-hearted Emil was called up to fight and left the farm for Samuel. Like so many others, he had no idea what fate had in store for him.
And again, this is interesting, right? Because it explicitly frames it as in terms of, like, you know, it broke up a family that was mixed German and French, the war. And it's also, it's kind of cartoony, but it's also really intense at the same time. Or, oh yeah, and it has these little historical vignettes and snippets. With, yeah, kind of timelines and various kind of artifacts associated with the war. Again, right there, as a result of the chain of diplomatic and military alliances in place, the events launched Europe into an armed conflict that, with the involvement of colonies, took on a global dimension, right? What made it a world war wasn't just that Europe was at war, but it was because, you know, Europe was where all the, you know, the colonial powers were, so if they were in a conflict, they would bring in all their colonies into that conflict as well. So it's very much like a colonial war, and a war that was partially shaped by colonialism as a force. Oh, all right. Go back and we'll... One of the things I think is also really interesting about this game is that it's a little bit childlike, but it's still like dealing with serious subject matter. Right? Like you can have a grim, dark war story, but trying to, like, you know, emotionally process the intensity of it. You can still have a this one. All right, like that. How do I throw it? Oh, with the A button. Letting go of the A button, or pushing the A button? Is that... No. Alright, let's try that again. Yoink. Oof. Wow, that thing really bounces. Okay, there we go. Here's the process of teaching you to hit the enemy. Like, again, it's cartoony and a little bit silly, but it's also very serious. Yoink. There we go. Yoink. Yeah. There we go. The barracks in the regiment. And the kind of fanfare and lead up at the start of the war, it was treated as a celebration, right? How do I interface with this? There we go. They're having me raise the flag. 150th.
My dear Marie, we are on our way to Paris. The atmosphere here is strangely cheerful. I hope that the harvest goes well. Rely on our neighbors for help. They've always been gracious and charitable people. I'll write again as soon as I get my assignment. Please kiss my little grandson for me.
And again, like, mail, like, technology and just the postal system is so important.
Paris, trying to reach his regiment at Platform 21, Emil would meet the man he would soon fight alongside. The man who would come to be his truest friend.
They're being mean to him and they won't let me through. Alright, so we need to mess up their day. That's only one batch of them. Yoink, steal that. And I know he likes white wine. Won't let me up, so I have to do this little mini game. War is declared. Cute. Right. Nope. You. Nope. You. No. You. There we go. Again, the fanfare. Oh my. Think. I'm pushing it. Oof. There, heat exhaust. The railways, yep. Again, because, you know, like, the First World War wasn't the first, like, mechanized war, but it was definitely a war that was characterized by technology in just a huge new way, right? Importantly, right, a number of the technologies that, like, took place in the war and the build-up of artillery and the kind of machine guns and all of that were originally actually kind of first tested out. And one of the sites was during the Second Boer War, sometimes just called the Boer War, in which actually there were numerous battles. Actually, indigenous Ndebele were defeated by the English in modern Zimbabwe in the first Matabele War, and this was because of the machine guns that they used. This was in between 1893 and 1894. So they knew that this technology was going to change the face of warfare. And largely the Boer Wars were largely, as I understand, colonial wars about access to gold and diamonds and other resources. Largely Dutch and German settler farmers, Boer, or is it Boya? It was who opposed to British rule and importantly the abolition of slavery. A number of people have fought because they were opposed to slavery. Opposed to the abolition of slavery at that time period. Also quite tellingly, it was in the Boer War that you also see kind of the advent of modern concentration camps. So a lot of these things actually took place much earlier than we kind of think of them as being kind of like, you know, part of our cultural memory. I'm going to bring it back so I can see if anyone's chatting. Alrighty, let's get in here again.
Thank you very much. I'm Freddy. Where are you from? Who are you listening?
They are speaking their languages, but it's very truncated.
August 21st, 1914. Emil's regiment was sent to fight against the 71st German Division, led by Baron von Dorf. The general cheer of the first hours dissipated into the fear of first combat.
And again, the style you almost expect it to be like Castle Crashers, but it actually has a lot. It's both silly and has a lot of heart to it. And there's the machine guns. Oh. I don't know if I can get... Oh yes, I can definitely... Okay, I can definitely get shot this time. Alrighty. Let's try that again. It's back up. It's back up. It's back up. Oh no, oh no, oh no, can't back up. Oh, okay. It's a good thing I have extra lives in this conflict. It's definitely a time... Oh. Alrighty, so much for him. Oh my goodness. And the machine gun fire. And they really try to emphasize just how messy and confusing it is. In an actual combat situation, it's not easy to keep track of what's going on. That's why friendly fire is so common. Ugh. Oh my. Ugh. Oof. Right? And you're not like special necessarily, right? So many war-themed games have you being this indomitable soldier when the vast majority of us would be cannon fodder.
Miss Marie Chillon, Private Emile Chillon from the 150th Infantry Regiment, was wounded by enemy fire on August 21st. He has been captured by the enemy. Hopefully, you shall receive news from him soon. Freddy, originally from America, enlisted voluntarily in the French forces at the start of the war. Behind his bravery hid a man already devastated by the war's effects. A man with one sole obsession: punish those who had destroyed his life. It was at the Battle of the Marne that Freddy finally picked up the trail of the regiment commanded by Baron von Hof.
Alrighty. Alright, chop, chop, chop. It kind of has like a Lost Vikings vibe in terms of the different characters. So what do I do here? How do I get through? Oh ho, I see, I just charge it. New diary unlocked. Oh wow, maybe it'll help ease the pain I feel inside. Chop, 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 chop. Okay. Oop. Don't mind if I do. Chop, chop, chop. Oh, nope. Alright, I have to do that without getting... There we go. Climb, climb, climb. Let's see now, what's next? Think. Think. Oof. Right, and it's so comparatively gentle, right? Like, all the guys just run away before the bridge explodes. Oh my. Dynamite, right? Some of you might know that, like, TNT and the chemicals used in it, you know, the mass production of those chemicals was what gave us, indirectly, the Nobel Prizes, because of the, you know, Nobel's... Oh, what am I doing here? Alright, that's what I'm doing. Kind of like regrets about... stated regrets about the role that... somewhat pernicious role that TNT and its kind of like related explosive substances had on society. We'll get to it a bit here. Alright, how do I think? Pick this up. Yeah, there we go. Ba-doo-ba-doo. Alright, I Okay. Oh, okay, yep. Want to be under there. Yeah, chop, 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 chop. Ew. Oh, how long does it take you to reload? There we go. Right, like the whole concept of like a war story or a war game that we interact with for fun is kind of, you know, in some ways kind of like antithetical to what war is, but it's so common. So how do you... There we go. Still, you want people to actually interact with the media you're producing. There we go. This guy is kind of cartoonish. I'll give you that. Come on, up, up. Go, go, go. Want to get there before everything gets explodey. Okay, this is a bit more of a... Oh my goodness. Puzzle element. Alrighty, so... How do I knock that ladder? Well, I'm stuck there. Aha. That's how. That gets him going and looking around. I don't want... Alright. So, how do I get him? Go somewhere where he won't hit me. Do it. I think. Oh no! 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 Nope! 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 That wasn't distraction enough. It seems. Whew. Alrighty, let's try that again. No, I can't. Alright. Maybe if I go like this. There we go. There we go. Poof. Poof. Oof. Oof. There we go. Very dramatic.
Thanks to support from British forces, the German plan failed. The front line moved back to the north, and with the arrival of winter, froze. Soldiers holed up amid a vast labyrinth of trenches and tunnels that would become the indelible image of the Great War. Karl's regiment retreated to the outskirts of Neuve-Chapelle, the same camp where Emile was being held prisoner.
A Red Cross dog. Oh, no, it's just a medic dog, not Red Cross. Oh, no, that is a Red Cross. Alrighty, now we have to make Wurst. I like that it emphasizes that, like, people, like, humans at different sides, ostensibly different national sides of the war, were...
We live in a climate of uncertainty. Germans use the people of Saint-Mihiel as human shields against the French bombings. I hope the Germans treat you well, and that your wound has healed. Your grandson sends you kisses. I sent you a picture of him. All my love. Please write soon.
Because the implication is that Emil is the grandfather, Karl is his son-in-law. But again, it's relatively... Nope. Water, then fire, then sausages. Nope. Oh no. Alright. This order. Water. Fire. Sausages. Wurst. "6 million prisoners of war." Right? Because, you know, despite the 1907 Hague Convention and the efforts of the International Red Cross, prison conditions and forced labor proved harsh for conscripts, and hundreds of thousands of people never made it home. Oh my goodness. Oh wait, no, that's definitely something that could kill me. Alrighty, let's get away from that. One of the things I sometimes struggle with in this game is just knowing what was actually gonna get me. Oh no. Oh, the doggo is your friendo. Left bumper. Always nice. Yeah, see. Now you have a doggo companion. And you have spoon powered. Pew, pew. Why? Drop it. Drop it. Drop it. Alright. Connect. Do I take it? There we go. Oh yeah, and you pat him. No, come on, put it in. How do I use that now? There we go. Aha, lever. Let's give us some munitions. They really have big shells like that. It's not technically something soldiers are supposed to do, but a lot of soldiers take souvenirs, like really big brass naval shells. Brass is very expensive, but a lot of folks in the military take them as souvenirs when they're there. I don't know if they still do that, but they certainly did that in the 90s. Alrighty, Doggo's gonna stay there. Oh. Interesting. Alright. I see what you do here.
What?
Come on. HP pop and stuff? Come on. Why are you staying there?
What?
Unless... Aha. Achtung! There we go. That's why I stay in there. Oof. The Battle of Neuve-Chapelle? March 10th, 1915, British shells literally rained down on German forces. For the first time, the technique creeping barrage was used. A barrage where the fire of all units targets the same position for a period before advancing one line at a time. The infantry's advance was synchronized at a safe distance behind this barrage so that German lines could then be overrun. That day, 530 cannons fired over 216,000 shells. That is to say, 1 shell per weapon every 2 minutes. Where does that lead? That's where it leads. Oh. Alrighty. What next? Oh, I see. Wow, I'm actually using my spoon to dig. Oof, there we go. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, there's some skeletons.
What? I didn't touch you.
Maybe. Valiant Stories Contest Memorabilia. Lace tighteners made by Corporal Lucien de Femeltel, great-grandfather Benoit Tendre, from a melted down cartridge case. Spoon power. Let's see. Oh. I'm gonna get to this. That seems explodey. What are you digging for, Puppo? Left bumper.
What? Ah, I didn't. Let's see.
Aha, I see.
Merci,
Merci. Yeah, let's not explode ourselves that way. And neither seems particularly pleased with himself. Go. Nope, that's also another shell, so let's...
What? Ah.
Okay, we're gonna have to be careful where we dig here. Alright. Oof. Oh no, you got stuck! Oh, it's getting intense. Minutes earlier, on the other side of the front.
The British troops continued their attack on Neuve-Chapelle. Their next objective? Take back Port Arthur.
Yes, sir. Come on, boys, let's go.
The Garwell Rifles. In the early 20th century, Great Britain and France governed huge colonial empires and put them to use during the war. Indian troops were deployed by British in the Middle East as well as on the European front, and made an important contribution to the war effort. Many victories were achieved thanks to their bravery and discipline in combat. A monument commemorating their sacrifice stands in Neuve-Chapelle. Mud. Yep. Oh, there's a lot of war poetry about mud. That's for sure. Nope. I'm not gonna punch that barbed wire fence. Oh no. This is a... Oh no, wait, no, I wasn't supposed to knock that down yet. Oh. Yep. Alright. Once more with feeling. Alright. Now you wait a little bit. There you go. No, it's not connected. Alrighty, so 2, 2, 3, 2. 2. 3. No, what? I thought that was a 3. Oh, where's the 3? Oh, the 3's up here. And 2 again. Explosive. The English used cordite, a powerful explosive that could detonate at a distance. Oh wait, no, we keep going this way. I see. No? Oh, I see what we did there. It was a little too subtle for me, you see. Achtung! That's where he sees. Oh, come on. Oh my, I have to do that in time. Alright, whew. Don't scare me like that, game. Make me think there's a chance I might not rescue the doggo. Ugh. They do come equipped. Let's get you out of there. There we go. Oh yeah, I guess the human too.
Merci, mon ami. Du Ragnar.
How are we doing for time?
Galleries for no. Yeah, comme this.
Going with ya.
Amidst the never-ending attacks and counterattacks, Freddy and Emil hunted the elusive Baron and his regiment in Ypres.
Alright, this is it.
On April 22nd, 1915, chlorine gas was used for the first time by the Germans.
So I just want to take a little... Battle of Ypres is a key strategic town in Belgium, especially for the British. It was the gateway to the north and thus to Britain. Canadian troops were deployed in the front line, and they proved their endurance and dependability in combat to the Allies. 6,000 Canadian lives were lost in the battle on April 15th. Oop. I just want to get out of the coughing. Oh wait, I see what I'm supposed to do here. So, I want to talk a little bit about chemical warfare, because it's one of the most characteristic elements of the First World War, really. So, the person who's considered to be kind of one of the founding fathers of modern chemical warfare was a fellow named Fritz Haber. Now, Haber was notable for a number of reasons, right? I mean, mostly in the contemporary imagination for chemical warfare, the Germans' use of chemical warfare. But before that, I mean, he was a German academic, chemist, right? And most notably, he was often involved in debates with Albert Einstein during this period about the roles of Jewish people in German society, right? Fritz Haber was part of an assimilationist camp who thought that the best way for Jewish people to be respected and treated well in Germany was to do their best to assimilate and support the German nation state. Whereas Einstein was generally opposed to Jewish assimilationism in that fashion, and was a discussion they had. Also, even during the start of the war, Haber, like many German scientists and academics, were decidedly pro-war, right? Haber signed on to the Fulda Manifesto. A whole bunch of academics and German intellectuals proclaimed their unconditional support for the fatherland on October 4th, 1914. Whereas Einstein actually signed a counter-manifesto calling for an end to the war and the creation of a united Europe. The War Manifesto got 93 prominent signatures. The Peace Manifesto got 4 signatures, of which Einstein's was one of them, just to give you a sense of the general tenor of Germany during that time period, and also England and France and what have you, right? So Einstein was actually formulating general relativity while blockaded in Berlin, short on food and actually processing his recent divorce at that time period. This can be read in Einstein's War, How Relativity Triumphed Amid the Vicious Nationalism of World War I by Matthew Stanley. Now, but let's go back to Haber, right? Haber was a noteworthy character. World War I is sometimes described as the chemist's war because of the way in which chemistry played a role in it. Now, Haber was already starting to become famous more internationally before this because he was actually involved in developing what's known as the Haber-Bosch process, right? This was actually a way in which you could first start producing biologically usable nitrogen in the form of ammonia by actually chemically or synthesizing it in a lab setting. He did this with the British chemist Robert Le Rossignol, right? So again, this was science at the time did have a lot of international ties before the start of the war, and those ties got, frequently severed. And the Haber-Bosch process, essentially created ammonia, fixing nitrogen for fertilizers. This was in 1909, and this was a huge deal because at the time period, the rise of modern industrial agriculture was rapidly depleting soils and depending upon exporting things like bat guano from the colonies and such like. So this was considered to be a hugely important social intervention in 1909, right? The tricky thing is some of the same chemical processes that allow you to synthesize chemical fertilizers are also, if you know how to do that, you start to learn how to make chemical weapons as well using somewhat similar processes, right? In fact, one of his friends, writing in his obituary, wrote that Haber will go down in history as the ingenious inventor of the process of combining nitrogen with hydrogen, as the man who by this means won bread from air and achieved a triumph in the service of his nation and all of humanity. So while Haber was definitely responsible for a lot of chemical weapons, he actually won a Nobel Peace Prize after the war. However, a lot of people refused to shake his hand because he won the Peace Prize for his work on fertilizers, not for his work on chemical weapons. Right? And specifically, he's personally oversaw the release of chlorine gas at Ypres during this conflict that's actually being shown in this game, right? They also released phosgen, and it's pretty insidious, right, as chemical weapons go. Its effects can sometimes only be felt up to 48 hours after exposure, and some estimates state that 85% to 91. Some estimates state that 85% of the 91,000 deaths from chemical weapons were actually caused by phosgen, which is notable, right? Because you usually hear about chlorine or mustard gas during these time periods. But there were numerous chemicals reduced during that case. And again, right, even if you survived, right, usually the fatalities for some of these were only about 2 to 3%, but numerous long-term health consequences, right? Now, and there's pictures of Haber overseeing the use of chlorine gas at Ypres during this conflict. You can Google that stuff. But it's interesting to note, right, in terms of like international treaties, that chemical warfare had already kind of been foreseen and outlawed by an earlier Hague Convention in 1899. But at the same time, right, and this is a classic how world powers, deal with the development of ever more deadly weapons, both sides argued that it was necessary to continue researching chemical weapons even if they had a convention against it, because the other side was doing it too, right? And most noteworthy in terms of selling the use of chemical weapons to the German newspapers and sources explicitly used the French use of tear gas as a justification for their own gas attacks. They're saying, well, the French have started this, right? Which changed kind of like the rhetoric of it. And it's really, I think, noteworthy because, like, in his own kind of justification to the troops during the release of these chemical weapons, Haber himself said, and I quote, "The disapproval that the knight felt for the man with a gun is repeated by the soldier who shoots steel bullets when confronted by a man who appears with chemical weapons. The gas weapons are not at all more cruel than flying iron pieces. On the contrary, the fraction of fatal gas diseases is comparatively smaller. The mutilations are missing." And, you know, you can see some kind of rationalization in that. Also, tragically, and this is some trigger warnings for suicide, Haber's wife, Clara Immerwahr, was actually decidedly opposed to the use of chemical weapons and ended up divorcing him. She was known for her commitments to pacifism and women's suffrage, and actually did chemical work. She was a scientist in her own right. And she helped him with a lot of his works that contributed to the work that ultimately got him a Nobel Prize. But she publicly denounced Haber's involvement in chemical weapons, and later on would actually end up committing suicide with Haber's own military pistol on May 2nd, 1915. The very next morning, Haber left to oversee the first chemical weapons attack against Russian forces on the Eastern Front. And I know the story of Haber is so involved and tragic in so many ways, right? Because not only was he this kind of like figure of kind of the ways in which science can benefit humanity, but also of notorious war crimes in the First World War in a way that was normalized at the time period. But not only that, right? But later in life, his kind of like, you have to do everything for the fatherland, and hopefully then, you know, they'll recognize us even though we're minorities. Kind of backfired on him because he did live to the you know, the start of this, pretty well the start of the, not quite, yeah, the start of the Second World War. Not quite, I think. But he was actually the one who also later on in some of his labs contributed to the chemicals that were used in the Second World War in the gas chambers. And actually Haber ended up dying in exile. I believe he was trying to flee to Israel during the lead up and start of the Second World War. And it's interesting, right? Because Einstein was keenly aware of the irony and tragedy of Fritz Haber. Actually, in some of his writings, Einstein said, "At the end, he was forced to experience all the bitterness of being abandoned by the people of his circle, a circle that mattered very much to him, even though he recognized its dubious acts of violence." And this is, I think, really noteworthy. "It was the tragedy of the German Jew, the tragedy of unrequited love." You know, this kind of nationalism. So yeah, chemical warfare, a lot of people involved in that, a lot of cultural impacts, a lot of issues, and it very much so a part of how like the history of science and technology relate to the history of war and society and all sorts. All right, let's get back. I've lectured at you enough. Let's continue on here. New diary unlocked. Nope. All right, what are we doing here? Okay, more gas. What do we need to do here? Oh, you're digging. You're digging, Puppo. Trust the digging.
What? Ready. What?
You were digging.
Hey, Yeshi. Hey, what? What? Yeshi. What? Hey, what? No. What?
No.
What?
I want to send him to help with the guy. But I don't know if I can do that. We do here. Oh, I just need to bring up the screen so I can see if anyone's chatting at me. Oh, 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 okay. That's new. Alrighty. What's all going on here? I get it. Alright, that's... Yeah. Canadian identification tag. At the start of the war, Canadian identification tags were formed by a large aluminum disc, which was because they were an emergency issue and had a unique shape. They were soon replaced by standard British tags, as were those of all British forces. Hey, whoop. Wait, oh wait, how do I get out of here? How do I get out of here? Alright. I think I need to bring Doggo down here with me. Come, Doggo.
Hey, what? Honey. What? What?
Yeah, whoop.
That's it.
Oh, smart Doggo. But maybe I should actually go down first. Because I don't want to abandon him down here. Down here. Yeah, oh my goodness. There's a lot down here. Alright. I don't know if that's exactly a historically accurate chemical weapons production facility, but it's definitely got some drama to it.
What?
Alright, no. Oh, that's how you're doing it. Okay. Yoop. Down. Alright. I get a sense of this. Is that how it goes? No. I think like that, maybe? Yoop. Urine-soaked cloth, that's a thing. The only defense against a gas attack before masks were introduced was to cover the nose with a urine-soaked handkerchief. Urine reacts with chlorine directly in the handkerchief to form less noxious products, limiting the effects. It was not the most hygienic solution, but it was always better than a lung full of hydrochloric acid. Oh my, that's a mood. Okay. Alright, let's see. Let's see now. So then if Doggo Friend can help us elevate that.
Hey, what?
Yeah, bloop. What was he? There we go. Oh, no. Come on. That will reconnect that. Oh, no, no, no. Stay. Has that got it? No. I don't quite have the connections right, it seems. There we go. Now I'm causing the trouble. Ah, I see what I'm supposed to do. Doggo Friend,
Honey.
help me. No, not quite. Let's try this one more time. Oh, no? Oh, that's a shame. I thought that had it. Hints in the menu. There we go. Hello, welcome, Thunder and Batarangs. It is a bien chen. Quite right. Très bien. There we go. Now they're releasing that for me. Oh. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that could be said about the history of war and society and technology and politics. I just wanted to talk a little bit about like chemical warfare, the advent of new technologies, and the political and human cost of it. And yeah, I encourage you to play this game if you're interested. It does a good job of kind of combining kind of like more childish, cartoony aesthetic with still some kind of poignant like social historical commentaries, particularly on how the First World War was, you know, there weren't any real good guys. There were mostly just losers in the First World War. But yeah, that brings us just about to the end of our time. Again, if there's a game you'd like us to play, next week, actually, we will be having the head of career development speak with us as well, so please do tune in for that. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming out and playing. If you'd like us to continue on playing any of these games, please do let me know. Otherwise, I just kind of keep on cycling through things that I have to give you a bit of a sense of, yeah, different options that we have for these sessions. Thank you all for coming out, and I hope the rest of the day is very kind to you. Cheers all!
What?